What up, what up? What's going on, guys?
Here we are again.
Here we are. Did someone order pizza?
I haven't eaten dinner yet, so stop making me
Passover
hungry.
this week, so I can't have pizza.
Oh, dude.
Wait, what's in the pizza that
Bread.
you can't have
No
bread?
Breadless
No
week.
bread.
More time for podcasting, though.
You know.
That's right. Hopefully you're not
Excellent.
going to be a hangry podcaster, though.
I'm good. I'm good. We're talking gear tonight, so like that's my jam. So
Yes, and we have a very special guest, Joe from Sound Devices. Thank you, Joe, for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for those of you who don't know Sound Devices, I know Adam can talk about them probably at length as well, but I am a huge fan of Sound Devices. They make these very nice boxes that allow you to record audio digitally
E-boxes.
in a bunch of different ways. Yes. And Joe, did Sound Devices start off just doing stuff for the film industry, or how did Sound Devices start off?
Yeah, we did. It was portable preamps, essentially, was our first product. And that was back in the day when you had a mixer and a recorder. So you had all this huge amount of gear, and it was all centered on the film industry. And then we sort of integrated the mixer and the recorder into one thing, and then it's just totally evolved from there into our current lines.
And now they're basically called field recorders, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
go out
a
in
lot
the
of people.
field on a film with a little bag and the headphones. That's where you see the guy with the boom poles and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
They also have lav mics, usually wireless lav mics plugged into them. But
Like-
yeah, and so as far as having you on the show for podcasting, because this isn't a show about film production,
Right.
Sound Devices in the past few years has come out with a new line of products that is perfect for podcasting. I have two MixPres. I have a MixPre 3 first gen, which I got when it first came out, and then I upgraded to a MixPre 6 2, and so my MixPre 3 now is my backup that I take with me in my bag just in case something happens to my MixPre 6 2, which has never happened.
All right.
And these are basically little multi-channel, multi-track recorders that record to an SD card, super portable. The MixPre 3 is like tiny. It's, well, let me get it. It's
Yeah.
right here in front of me.
How tiny is it?
It's this tiny, like about the size of 2 deck of cards. And it's got 3 mic inputs and a little touch screen on the front. It can run off batteries, has SD card input. You can also plug it in via USB and use it as an audio interface. And I'm actually talking on through my MixPre 6 2 right now, which has a couple more inputs. It has a 4th mic preamp, and then it has a stereo aux input, which I'm using to hear all of you that I've got assigned to the USB return from my computer. So I'm able to record myself and my computer through my MixPre 6. So I do that as redundancy to Fireside so that I have the best audio quality possible. When I record at a client's place with multiple microphones, I just take my little box in and 4 microphones and some stands, and that's it. I don't have to have a laptop or any of that stuff. And the mic preamps sound fantastic. They especially sound great on my SM7B. Yeah. There is, 70 dB of gain range for them, Joe?
Yeah. 70, 76.
So plenty of gain.
Yes.
I never max it out.
Yeah. Right.
I've never maxed them out. And it's super quiet. There's analog limiters built in, but there's also some stuff that we'll get into maybe a little nerdier later on, 32-bit float with the 2 series, which is super amazing. We've touched on that before in previous episodes, but maybe Joe can help us get into a little bit more. I know Molly's going to just nod off at some point.
we'll get into it. Joe, what's your role at Sound Devices, and how long have you been there?
Oh, gosh. I do a lot of things. I am the customer engagement specialist and social media manager currently. So I do all of our social media. If you've ever interacted with Sound Devices on social media, it was me or some of our support team. I'm in charge of our educational materials. That includes videos and articles and things like that. I do our user stories, which is great because I love going out and I get to I get to talk to people who do really cool stuff with our gear in every possible scenario where people are recording audio. So that's really cool.
How long have you?
And I get to
How
do
long
fun
have
stuff
you
like this.
you been there?
Oh man, it'll be actually just 3 years. Last summer, so I guess I'm coming up on my 4th this summer, July. And actually,
Adam's
I
really
started
shaking you down. He's
You
like,
know,
"How
I
long
know,
have you
yeah,
been
Joe's
right.
the
there?
guy.
Who
Joe's
are
my
you?
guy. Gotta know
Who do
who
you
I'm
know?
talking to. He's
Who sent
Where'd
you?
you work? Where'd you work
he's the
before
real
that?
deal, right? He's Sound Devices
Yeah.
is it. You know, I mean, like that's the real shit. So I'm very just curious. I've noticed.
You can have a man on the
Yeah,
inside.
you know,
That's
I mean,
fine.
but Sound Devices was like in my world, music store world, like untouchable stuff for a very long time. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, Sound Devices, oh, that's
Super high end.
crazy stuff. You're up there. You know
AKA
what you're
pricey.
doing. You know,
Right.
But the MixPre series changed it all, and was really cool to see. That I think I love seeing brands that do really high end stuff develop something slightly downstream because it still holds. You didn't water it down. You maintained. Were you there before or when they announced the first MixPre series, or were you there just after that? You were definitely there when they did MixPre 2.
Just
right.
After. Yeah, just after the first MixPre came out. So when I came into Sound Devices, I was actually working QA. I got a job as a QA tester here.
Cool.
Working audio and stuff like that. And then I was kind of loud, and they're like, "Do you want to work in marketing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So they're like, "You're loud and funny, and just come on, and it's fine." So that's
Got a nice haircut.
Yeah,
Let's put you on YouTube.
Yeah, you'll probably translate the camera well. I don't, but I came in just after a few months after the original MixPre series was launched, so I got to spend a lot of time in QA working with those, and then for the development of the MixPre 2 series and the 8 series as well when those were coming out.
I mean, it's not a tough sell to get a more affordable, Sound Devices product, but I
Right.
think in the podcasting world, it wasn't the first thing that people thought of. But
Unless you're a super
unless
nerd
you're like
me.
Marcus and geek out, and you already were like, I'm just going to use it anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, especially with the 2 series, you guys did probably all you did a great job, and the videos on podcasting were on point and showed really the value in getting some of these like premium level, components and pieces of equipment to do this sort of thing. And like, as everybody jumps in the podcasting bandwagon, yeah, there's the content, but also the caliber of the recording. It really starts to become even more important, and the ways that you can do that. So it's definitely started to be more widely used and really cool to see. So probably all kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we have a great team of engineers here as well. Like if the features aren't there, I could market my ass off, but it has to work. It has to sound good. Our CEO, Matt Anderson, our co-founder as well, he still designs all of our preamps.
Wow.
Few people in the world understand analog components the way that he does, and there are fewer and fewer people like that every year. So it starts with a really, really good preamp. It starts with that, and then we just kind of build the box around it, which is, I think, fundamental. If you've got a great podcast with really great content, but it doesn't sound great, if it's grating to listen to, then it might not go very far.
Absolutely.
You could tell me where the free money is, and if it sounds bad, I'm going to turn it off before I get to the location.
That's right. Well, I first came across Sound Devices when I was a touring sound engineer. The USBPre 2, is that the right name? That's kind of like the industry standard that all live sound engineers use for their RTA mics when they're like tuning a PA system. And so everybody had a USBPre 2. They've been around for forever, just super clean. It's still like a $700 2-channel USB interface. I don't know if they've dropped. That's what it was the last time I had one, but I don't know if they've changed in price. But that's the thing. Like people are still buying them. People like are they still making them at Sound Devices?
Still making the USBPre 2.
Yeah. You just it's just an amazing device. And so as soon as this MixPre came out, like I said before, I jumped on it. But the reason why I was so excited about it is we already talked about like the quality of the preamps, but reliability too is a big thing for me. Can you talk about what goes into making sure that these things are as reliable as possible, and that engineers can make sure that when they hit record that it's going to actually do its job?
Yeah. It's a big deal coming from film, where we do a lot of, the nice word is unscripted television. Everybody else knows as reality TV, but where you get one take of these people fighting in a bar, and that's it. So, redundancy is something that's really important. With the MixPre series, you do have the one SD card port, but it also can back up to a USB drive.
Yes.
Which that gives you your second media. As far as physical components, the thing's a tank. We do drop tests, we do heat tests. We have the old Jensen Audio loudspeakers factory when they were in Chicago. We bought their really big vibrating table from them.
Cool.
So we put the MixPre, we put our products on it, we shake it for a really, really long time.
Just give one to Molly in the earthquake and just see how it goes.
That's right.
Shake it up.
And the pool, you just got to keep it just kind of above the water, and it'll be all right. Yes, we moisture test them. So we have people who are using these sitting down very nicely, around a podcast table, and that's really cool. And then we have people who were taking it to. We had a musician, Jack Kennedy, take it to Iraq to record the resurgence of music there. He took a MixPre 10. Was a fantastic story I got to do with him, and he said, it's bulletproof and it's the size of a sandwich. It's battery powered, and I was able to capture all these incredible things. So they definitely go through the ringer. The way they're designed with the golf tees, let me see if I can do this without making too much noise. If you drop this on its face, see if I can find my camera, it's going to hit this first.
Right.
Like, there are very few fail points on it. We've put a good deal of weight on these, and they always seem to just hold up. So it's important to us, that they're incredibly, incredibly durable.
Well, and if it's bulletproof, you could wear it in your front pocket, and it might save your life one day. You
never know.
And still record at the same time.
Especially if you're in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a field recording, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That was really bad.
I like talking to our service department, because it's like, oh, this one just came back from Deadliest Catch. And it's
cool.
It's full of salt water, but somehow they managed to. Deadliest Catch usually throws their gear away
right
after each season, but they had something last more than one season, and they were very happy.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, all that salt water. I mean, even just living near the beach or at the beach, you go through equipment so much faster than. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine on a boat like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you mentioned, the TV instances of making sure you capture that live take or what, the once in a lifetime performance or whatever it is for the live TV thing. And podcasting, we obviously have the luxury of starting and stopping, but there are some documentary style, journalistic style podcasts that you don't want to miss something good and have to go back and re-record it. How, in your experience and with the variety of people that you've been in contact with, have you learned any specifics as to how important it is to make sure that recording up front is as good as possible? Because I have strong opinions about it, and we've kind of addressed it before, but I just wanted to see what your take is on, making sure that recording is the best possible, as opposed to just, we'll just fix it in post.
Yeah. I think a really, really big part of that is people talk about, I think driving an SM7 is imperative for podcasting. It is like the podcasting sound. We've done a few tests here with those inline mic preamps that you have to put in to get the gain up for other ones, and we found that they're increasing noise like crazy.
Like this?
Yeah, like that. I have to be diplomatic and can't name names or say brands, but
we can.
We found, you guys. I mean, everyone's making cool, good audio gear. We just make cool, good audio gear too.
Good audio gear.
I mean, listen.
Well, and for me, it's one less thing to put in line, one less cable to connect, one less thing to fail. There's, I don't have to use phantom power, which if I'm on battery, that eats up extra juice, with these inline preamps. And it, like with the MixPre, I don't need the inline preamps. You're absolutely right,
Yeah, and I think that's a good selling point. A lot of people are like, oh, we shot out 10 interfaces with an SM7 and 10 inline microphone preamps, every single instance of it. And it's like, oh well, it just kind of boils down to more stuff. And I think the time that goes into that as a beginning podcaster, you know, you're saving a lot of money in the beginning, and then you realize you're putting in a lot of time on the back end to maybe try and EQ around something or fix something that's a subpar recording.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hesitate going live with a MixPre and just calling it. That's what I do for all of our tutorial videos. I'm in our room here where I shoot our tutorial videos, and we've soundproofed it as best as we could, but it is an office building. You know, someone really is fond of high heels above us. And our lobby's right to my left. There's a bank of water fountains, and then the actual boiler room, and then like a restroom. So you'll get, you know, water and pipes and things like that. But it's actually, I'm running, let me see how much. I have the low cut filter on right now.
Yeah.
I've got about 8 dB of noise assist going, just to cut down on general HVAC and stuff like that. And I think it sounds pretty good.
So the NoiseAssist is an add-on plugin you can
Yes.
get to install directly on the box itself.
Yes. So
is pretty
we
slick.
have been kind of poking at this for a long time and looking for a noise suppression algorithm that we could get to work in real time with our gear. So a lot of our engineers have been at it for a while, and we came up with NoiseAssist. So it is a real-time noise suppression algorithm, and it's always kind of working in the background while you have it on. It's very good for slow, transient, sort of moving noises. So if you have things like fans, things like distant traffic, some like crowd murmur that kind of just swells and things like that.
Chainsaws.
Yeah, chainsaws. Chainsaws. Angry dogs. But we had a...
Howler monkeys.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, monkeys, of course. Yeah.
Molly's
All
got
of
some
these
of
are
those
Molly's
outside.
real life experiences.
Yeah, exactly. It's a every day in my world right here.
It's going to be hard living between the zoo and the train station. Probably don't sleep much.
I live in Costa Rica, so there's like legit howler monkeys, which, you know, they're these super loud monkeys. And then when you see them, they're like these tiny little guys, and apparently they have the strongest like vocal cords of any animal on the planet, because it sounds like a giant like gorilla in the tree, and then you look over and it's one of those like monkeys with like the curly tail, and it's like this big, and you're like, what the hell, man? It's the loudest animal.
Cool.
We got to test
Literally.
noise assist on howler monkeys.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you need a howler monkey test for
Yeah, absolutely.
got
I mean,
you.
it's, as long as they're winding up to it, I think we should. As long as they don't just start,
right.
I think we might be able to work.
So does that only work
We
on
did
the,
have-
on the mic channel that you're plugged into? Like, would it work, like, I guess Marcus is doing, like, loopback audio and recording us. Would it work on our channel, our loopback channel, too?
It would. You can put it on. So you have, we call them instances, because if we say channels, people end up getting confused. You have one instance available to you on the MixPre series. So we're finding a lot of people will put it on like a bus and then run their ISOs raw. So you have
Cool.
it there in case you need it.
That's a good idea.
Cool. So what are, like, you know, I just know that, you know, it's the bee's knees, but like, what are the key in your eyes? Like, if you're talking to like the podcaster that's thinking about upgrading their setup, like, what are you focusing on for them? Like, what are the key components of a MixPre that you're like, you can't ignore these things?
I know the preamp is a huge part of it. I know that its plug and play is very easy. I really like the redundancy. A lot of people don't think of the redundancy of recording to whatever you're streaming to and your physical media on the SD card
Yes.
just as a backup. One thing not a lot of people talk about is MixAssist, which is our auto mixing algorithm. It works on a kind of like a gain sharing principle. So if you've got a bunch of people in the room with you, and everyone's kind of got a mic, it's good for, you know, when people can be in rooms together again. It's gonna pick up on who's speaking, and it's gonna kind of intelligently reduce everybody else. So it's gonna sound a little closer to a finished mix. And that isn't something you have to have baked in. We do have a like a remix feature where you can play a file back and actually adjust it, and you can create a brand new mix out of that without damaging your.
So it's like automation, like it
Cool.
records the raw, but it also rides the faders, you know, essentially for you and adjusts all the levels for you.
Yeah, and it helps when everyone's really close too, because it's going to say, okay, I'm kind of reading a signal that's between these two mics. I'm going to pull one down where it's quieter, so it's going to, you know, kind of stop the crosstalk a little bit.
Helps with the bleed between mics.
Can you run
yeah.
that at the same time as the noise assist?
The noise assist.
You can.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you can remix both of those if you want to. If you have just all your raw files, you can do a remix take with just MixAssist on, and then you can do a remix take with just NoiseAssist on one of your buses, and then you can do a remix take with both, and you can just keep, parsing it out until you're happy with the mix that you have.
That's awesome.
So that especially be handy for if you're live streaming or if you're recording with video and you want to just have minimal post-production so that you're just recording straight to the, into the, like you could take the stereo out into the camera and then just record it right there and then just do a couple of quick like bumpers on the beginning and end of the video and publish it to YouTube. You're done. It's already mixed for you, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. We found that it was like panel discussions was the biggest thing, when we first kind of put it out, and then as podcasting kind of exploded, we're like, well, it's just another panel discussion. A podcast is just a smaller, tighter panel discussion.
Right.
So we found that it translated really, really well.
And then in the film industry, I see a lot of guys on the Facebook page, which I'm a member of, talking about how they're using it for, like, the film set like is so complicated because you have all these wireless transmitters receiving and transmitting audio to the director's screen and video to the director's screen, so that the audio mixer doesn't have to work as hard to get the director something that's actual close to something that's usable, so he can get a sense of what the dialogue's actually going to end up being like, instead of having to like run around chasing knobs all day. So is that why it was originally designed too, for that sort of use case?
Yeah, there in film you hand off something. It's called a daily.
Right.
It's sort of like it's the take at the end of the day if the director wants to watch, and they can see, okay, most sound mixers are mixing to get an LR mix, and then they're also delivering ISOs to post production. Post production is the one who's going to end up doing what you hear in the movie as a final mix.
Right.
Some of the time, sometimes they do use the mix from the sound mixer, but at the end of the day, the director and the producer want to have something they can watch that might sound similar to the end result.
Right.
And and that helps them, get a good idea of what's going to happen going forward. So they'll knock out an LR mix while everything's happening, and then they have something to watch that's delivered. We put out NoiseAssist. It's available on the 8 series as well. And we thought that it would be used for, live-to-air applications, a lot of news gathering and things like that. But we found that we didn't think it would really touch narrative work because the post-production market, is so big there, and most noise reduction would happen there. But we found that tons of mixers are using it just to give to the director and be like, here's what it might sound worth. It's just another tool that they have, and they're a lot of people are putting it to use on narrative work, and they're very pleased with the results. So it makes us happy.
That's awesome.
What I'm really curious about is like the company name. Were you guys just like, hey, we're gonna come up with a name for this, but for right now we'll just call it Sound Devices because that's what we sell? And then somebody was like, that's not terrible. Let's just go with that.
So this was our co-founders started together at Shure 21, 22 years ago, something like that. Cool. And they started making, the products here, and it was an old box of scrap parts that was just sound devices just written on, and they're like, let's go with that. Awesome. Yeah, you totally nailed it. And they were like, yeah, that works for now. And it just stuck, and it's carried us through, and there it goes.
I was just kidding, but
no, you got it.
Here we are, because it's so like it's like cups, like we sell.
Totally, yeah. There's no confusion as to what we do.
Yeah,
we make sound devices.
Unlike some of these other guys, like what does Shure even mean? Road. What is that?
They even spelled it wrong.
Yeah, right. What's wrong with them?
I know. Every time my phone autocorrects it to like Shure, SURE, and then Mike's like Mike's telephone or like Mike's hard lemonade. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant to say, phone, for the fourth year in a row. But it's cool.
And so the other feature that Marcus alluded to earlier, that we geek out on all the time, is the 32-bit float, which was introduced in MixPre 2. You want to tell us a little bit about the geeky side of the recording medium that is 32-bit float?
Yeah. So this was something that has also kind of been poked at for a long time. Obviously, 24-bit is your, kind of like your industry standard. It's what everyone will kind of be marching to for a long time. But with 32-bit float, you essentially have an unlimited amount of dynamic range. Not to say that 24-bit doesn't offer you a huge amount of range, but with 32-bit float, it's, you don't want to say unlimited, but it's massive.
It might as well be.
Yeah, it might as well be for anything that you're going to record on planet Earth that will kind of like Sarah Connor a body apart. You know what I mean? So you have this massive amount of dynamic range that you can mess with in post. So if you record something way, way, way too quiet, you can crank it infinitely, and you're not going to lose anything in your signal. It's not going to get weird. And it's the same thing when you totally blow something out. You have the ability, and we did this, actually had fun recording one of our engineers' muscle cars for a video, and we just had him gun it, and I had the gains all the way up, and then we pulled it into post, and I was able to bring it down, and it was a comfortable listening level, but it was still, it still sounded very loud and explosive without clipping. So for podcasting, I think it's important if you don't have a dedicated podcast engineer, maybe if you're starting out or maybe if you're less comfortable, 32-bit float gives you a huge amount of wiggle room in post-production, especially if you have a guest and you're worried about capturing something once. Using that 32-bit float, if they get very quiet and they get really, really loud, gives you the ability where you don't have to go in and try and save to clipped recording.
Right.
Which is really, really cool.
Other competitors, what their solution for that is, because doing 32-bit float is super complicated. It's a lot of math, and it requires a heavy-duty processor. Yes. And so that's one of the reasons why this is like on another playing field compared to the devices. But the workaround that a lot of other companies do is they'll record a duplicate that's 20 dB down. Well, if you're dealing like on film set with like explosions and gunfire, 20 dB might not be enough.
Yeah, it might not cut it.
Yeah, but for me as a podcaster, it comes in handy because I'll set my gain, and normally I have to ride my gain, depending on if the person has bad mic technique and they're like all around the microphone. Right. But then also, especially if they another part of mic technique is, if you laugh really loud or cough, they don't move away from the microphone.
Right.
The laughing or whatever it is just totally blasts off the screen, when I open the file. But with 32-bit float, I just highlight that laugh and I just turn it down and it's not distorted at all. Whereas if you're in 24-bit, it like just chops it off. It's just a square wave, what they call it. It's just distorted. Right. And no matter how much you turn it down, it's still going to be distorted in post. Whereas 32-bit, it's like it's not distorted. But can you actually distort the preamps? Is there still a risk of that with the MixPre? Have you ever had that happen?
No, we haven't. The only thing you might maybe be able to, the microphone is going to blow out.
Right. First. It'll overload the diaphragm itself.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
It'll actually do that first. So
wow.
Nothing going on there. So the preamps themselves are good. So it's a very secret special combination of software and hardware that kind of makes this all work.
Yeah.
We originally, like you said, we were thinking sound effects recordings. We were thinking explosions, and we have a lot of people who do video game Foley, which requires a lot of, gunshots and fireworks and things like that. And then we thought, okay, well, people who are solo shooting, people who are filming themselves and maybe can't be writing the gain while they're looking at the camera, YouTubers, podcasters, anyone who is trying to kind of live in the moment without having to, reach over and keep monitoring things, keep listening to things, and it's going to make that entire process easier. And then just for maybe, just a little bit more time in post of just grabbing any errant, laughs, one loud ha, and it just blows everything out. You can just grab it and pull it right down.
And that's important for podcasters too, because especially if you're the host and you're recording, you're your own engineer, that's one less thing you have to worry about. You don't have to be as mindful about the gain as you would if you have just a regular interface that doesn't have 32-bit float. And there's only like maybe 2 or 3 interfaces out right now, and there's only one other recorder that I know of by another company that we won't mention that has 32-bit float that can, but there's a couple other like USB interfaces that have 32-bit float. Is that right?
Right, and there's a few that work in 32-bit float, like inside of a DAW.
Right, right.
Which is like a little bit differently. This is cool because it's working and recording in the 32-bit float, sort of in the real world.
Yes, yes.
So it happens on the inside.
Right.
Which is cool.
Right.
And
yeah.
How much do these, what do these devices cost? Like what are the numbers here? What are we looking at?
$549, I think on the low end. Hang on one second.
Marcus probably knows. Adam, what are you?
Yeah, I think they're up to $650 now for the MixPre 3.2. The price is
$710 for a 3.2, $915 for a 6.2.
Okay.
But still,
and
you know, for everything that you just described, I mean, like, you don't have to think about it anymore. Like, a lot, you know, time is money. That's my biggest pitch when I'm talking about, you know, stuff at this caliber is like, look, you can make a lot of things sound good. You know, you can make a lot of things sound good. Like you said, like you can plug an SM7B into a thing and have it sound right. But I'll be damned if you don't have to know a lot about what you're doing. And that's the beauty of the MixPre is that you can plug it in, crank it up, not worry that you've messed anything up, and you're going to capture it, and then you can send it to someone like Marcus or Molly to like get it done, and you've done your job. You've captured the moment. Like that's, you know, I don't. Everyone podcasts differently, and everybody has a different experience. Whether they're going to be doing something, you know, you never know what the interview is going to be like if you're doing like an interview style podcast. So it's worry free, and that's what you're paying for. You know, is that you don't have to think about it anymore. Like you're paying for you have an engineer in the box. You know.
Yeah. We've had good luck with people sending them out kind of as kits, where they'll put together a MixPre and an SM7 and just send it to a client and say, okay, you're going to get it. You know, they'll send a little cell phone, buddy. Here's how you plug it in. I already have a preset built for you. You just hit record. You hit stop when we're done. You send me your file.
That's exactly what I do with my clients. I have business clients that are like really busy CEOs. They do not know audio. Like one of them thinks that her $40 Logitech headset sounds as good as an SM7B. And like, but I got this thing for him and she can use it. Like she just goes in and presses record because that's what I told her to do. And then her office manager pulls the SD card out and sends me the files, and it works fantastic. It works every time. The only time it got messed up was when somebody went in and unarmed one of the tracks, so it didn't record. It's like, no, just, you know, don't touch the box. Just hit the record button. That's it.
It's red. It's large. It says rec.
Yes. It just works.
Like, oh, I thought you wanted me to wreck the file. My bad.
Sorry.
Close enough.
Well, and I mentioned earlier the prices have bumped up. Do you know anything about that? Like, is it the whole China thing? Is that why? Because the MixPre 3 I know used to be
like $650,
$649, and you may not know because you're marketing and not sales, but it's gone up, you know, a little bit, and the MixPre 6.2 has gone up like $50-$60 too. Do you know anything about?
Not offhand.
Because I know a lot of stuff has gone up just because the whole China
Very
deal.
seldomly do things go
Let's
down.
Just blame Trump.
Very seldomly do prices fall.
Right.
Yeah, I feel comfortable blaming Trump. You know what I mean? Like China. Did you guys ever see that recording of him saying China? Like
the
somebody
super
like
cut.
super dubbed. It's the only time I could listen to that man speak is him saying China 70 times in a row. Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like, you know, as somebody who has recorded a lot of stuff on the fly and like as somebody who learned as I went, you know, a device like this would have really come in handy because like when I went to She Podcast and I set up the little like interviews and stuff, like 26% of them were not actually recorded because I was, and people were hitting me up. Of course, like the only people whose like recordings didn't come to are the ones that hit me up like, hey, what happened to our interview? I'm like, you know, I don't know who you are, goodbye, but because you know you work so hard, and you know I did like 25 interviews, and so like of course some were gonna fall through the cracks, and like I was doing it by myself and like pushing buttons and running multiple cameras. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, to be honest. And a device like this would have came in a lot of handy. I mean, there's so many times when we've been out in the field recording something at the, you know, government building downtown, and like sometimes they give me a plug-in, sometimes they're like, ma'am, this is a secure room, you're not supposed to be here. You know, it's touch and go, you know. But a device like that would have really come in handy because I think that's it. Like, there's no free lunch, right? Like, so whether, you know, you're gonna spend one way or another, right? Like, you know, sometimes that's my biggest gripe with podcasters is everybody wants everything for free, and it's like I get that there's limitations with things for sure, but like you can't get everything for free and then turn around and ask how to monetize it, right? So like you're gonna pay in like either like actual dollars, like blood, sweat, or tears.
Right.
And if you don't spend the dollars, you're probably gonna get the blood, sweat, and the tears.
Yeah,
you know
a lot
I mean?
more
Like,
blood, sweat, and tears for sure.
I was gonna. That's what I was gonna ask. Is like
know,
that you're dead on. Is that a lot of people don't want to spend a lot on this in the beginning, and you know, Joe, you certainly have your the work cut out to kind of how are you kind of combating that and selling people into the fact that you got to make this big jump. I mean, this is a premium piece of equipment. They might be able to swallow their $400 for their SM7B, but then when they realize they got to drop twice as much for the device that's actually going to make it work, not that it's not it's the right move, but that's where you come in. Like, so how are you going up against that? And I think that we would all love, that's the biggest thing that I certainly fight here is like misinformation and like people thinking that you can just get by with, oh, I'm just going to do this for now and like I can cut corners. Like that's your whole job. So how do you go about it?
It scales with you. You know what I mean? It grows with you. We have a basic mode for when you're first getting started out. It's not something that you're going to have to replace. It's something that we support and have supported and will support. As long as we have any product that's become a legacy product, we make sure we have enough parts to source or have sourced enough parts that we can fix any of them.
That's huge.
That happen to come back in. So other companies are kind of famous for not answering their phones,
right?
Or not being able to service the gear that they have out in the field. I adore our support team. I talk to them all the time. They do a fantastic job. They are real humans that you can call and talk to, wherever you're based in the world. Our Watford office in the UK or our office here in Reedsburg, Wisconsin. It's a big investment up front, but it's gonna last. It's getting a firmware update pretty frequently. There are new features that come for it fairly frequently. And I think I push it as if you're anyone who does more than one thing with audio, it's a no-brainer. If you've got one of those big desktop dedicated, big soundboardy type podcasting rigs, and you fancy yourself as a sound engineer and someone calls you and says, hey, you want to record some birds? You can't take that thing out.
Take your big mixer out in the forest.
Yeah. It's kind of what you're stuck with. But if you do more than one thing with audio, it's the right way to go. I think is a big way that we sell it. And even if you're just, dedicated podcasting, as plug and play as it possibly can be with redundancy without cheaping out anywhere. It's plug and play, but it still sounds fantastic. It's plug and play, but you can set it up as a USB interface very, very quickly. And if you can't,
no software to install.
Yeah. And if you can't, you can call our support team and they'll talk to you about it. They'll talk about your operating system. They'll tell you where the drop downs are. Or, you can find one of our videos on it that we've done and be like, oh, this is, this follows. So we know how important support is for people. And, we really strive to kind of help them out through, the code red situations of, I'm on a movie set and I don't have any audio. It's like, okay, well, let's talk through it. Let's get through it. And that goes all the way down. You're not going to get any less support because you're a MixPre user because it's our, lower priced gear or what have you. So,
what else is cool is you guys are hanging out on the Facebook group too. Because I've seen you respond. You responded to one of my posts that I had where a glitch with Zoom that I still struggle with because Zoom likes to override my mix minus thing, and I figured out my workaround for it thanks to your help. And this is a known issue. I don't know of any other hardware groups that I'm a part of that have people hanging out. Like Apple, if you go on Apple's forums, they're not hanging out on there responding to people's tech support.
Right.
But yeah, and on top of it, just the caliber of people using these devices that is hanging out on the forums and is making YouTube videos, besides the YouTube videos that you guys make in-house, the community around all of Sound Device's stuff is like super supportive, lots of great advice, lots of professionals that really know what they're doing, as opposed to, with the lower end gear, you might get a variety of responses
right
that and you don't know what to ignore and what to pay attention to.
Well, that's one of the good things about shopping with podcast outfitters.
That's
you always
true.
have somebody to talk to.
That's right.
I've never had to do service
That's
on
right.
a MixPre.
Hey.
Not ever,
All right.
which is pretty cool.
I had a
you guys
problem
have
with
stuff in
my-
stock, which is also fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how
Yep.
you guys work
I
that.
had a
but
problem with my USB cable, and they just sent me a new one.
Yeah.
Like,
We'll do
Man,
that.
now I gotta buy a MixPre too.
I'm just
as well.
getting,
Yeah,
I'm getting
call
the
me.
package all loaded up, Molly. Just ship it down to you in Costa
Yeah.
Rica.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to talk about that because I really need to get the wireless lapel joints from last week.
That's right.
But I have a mailing address, which is kind of a big deal because like most addresses in Costa Rica are like 300 meters north of,
Oh, man.
you know, like some other building. And you're like, who the fuck knows that? You know what I mean? You're like, what is that, 17 paces? I don't even know.
Call me
right?
when
So-
you're close, and we'll shoot a flare, and then you just find it.
You'd be like, I'm here. Yeah, I love it. So I gotta ask Joe, will you share with us either like your best, most heartwarming, you know, Sound Devices social media story or your worst one? I don't want to
Yeah.
put you out there. You could go either direction here, but I know you got some gems.
Straight up social media stories.
well, you know, like
The floor is
general public
yours.
stories, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social media is a mixed bag. It's really cool to get to talk to a lot of our users. Most of them are overwhelmingly positive. Anytime we run ads, obviously that can run a little bit off the rails, and that's usually where it is. You know, people are very quick to be like, "This product isn't for me." And it's like, okay, well,
I'd love
cool.
to say that.
Thanks for letting us
That's
know.
yeah. That's about as negative as it gets on social media. Our users are really cool. I do like talking to them. I get to Cinespace is a gigantic industrial shooting compound near us, right in Chicago. So you know we get invited out all the time to go to like movie sets and things like that, and that's super duper fun. So
That's cool.
that's like a really really big part. We got invited to go to the set of Fargo, the season that
Nice.
just
Cool.
aired. Yeah, so a user of ours who we've been in contact with is a super, super great dude. And he's like, yeah, come down and Cinespace. So we got to tour the facility and see all the different stuff right before everything kind of closed for COVID. But that was last February, last March. We got to get out
over
there.
a year ago.
17 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, it
That's what it
feels like.
feels like.
But yeah, everyone's cool. Everyone seems to be really, really nice. So
Man, you're lucky because people are ridiculous on social media.
Yeah,
sometimes I get in fights with people on behalf of other companies because I know they can't do it,
Yeah.
and then so I like shut them down on
You're like
their
you're
behalf.
like an Avenger,
It's my
Molly.
favorite pastime.
you fight for the people who can't.
What's the most abused Sound Devices box that you've seen come through? Because you said you saw
There
the
you
Deadliest
go.
Catch one.
It's probably got to be the Deadliest Catch ones.
Gotcha.
Anything that comes back from the desert
Yeah.
or the beach.
Like Burning Man,
Yeah.
those bastards.
Yeah, right. Yeah, anything that has some sort of substance crushed up on top of it. Yeah, I mean, sand and saltwater are both equal and opposite evils
Yeah.
to try and get out of electronics. But we have, I'm probably allowed to tell you this. We have like run it over with a car in our testing. So
That's awesome.
flat, obviously not pointing up,
Right,
but
right.
we've put enough pressure on it to where it's like, it's probably pretty
Well, it's
stable.
like a solid hunk of metal. Like it's milled. Is it aluminum or some kind of alloy?
I believe so. I think
Bulletproof,
it's a die-cast aluminum chassis. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
From our friends over in our mechanical engineering department who work like right there. So if you guys hear
Cool.
drills or something going off, that's who that is.
And it has a mount so you can mount it on a tripod and a camera. And I've got mine because I yanked mine off my desk one time during one of our recordings and it unplugged and I like lost my audio. So I've actually mounted it to my desk on a little ball head thing, and I can put my camera on it too if I want to, and then run the audio into my camera. So it's really
Yeah.
Marcus hand soldered a tripod out of
Yeah, I've seen your
metal
builds, man.
from his grandfather's shed, and then
Oh, that's right. You guys posted my table.
That was
I made.
incredible.
Yeah.
That was so cool. I don't know. Has anyone reached out and been like, hey, can you build me one and send it? Or
No, well, there's of course, there's the goobers are like, dude, you should like post a video of how you built that. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just take a day.
Right.
I built this so I could save myself time recording stuff. I don't have time to make YouTube videos on,
Do you
on
have the
my
camera?
tools,
Do you have the
Right.
button working yet that we can see your desk again? Are you still not
No,
rocking
well,
another camera, man?
I
haven't seen it in weeks.
Yeah, my wife uses the other camera, and she had a call right before this, so I don't have it set up. So
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree. Unacceptable. I wanted you to hit that button and make it go up and down and spin around and do cool stuff again. It blew my mind.
yeah, but my table
Make us
lives
hate you.
next to me right here, and it's got a bunch of cables and stuff that I'm going to be soldering soon.
It's got to be a great feeling just to kind of walk into a podcast space and set that beast down. And there you go.
And the clients are like, wow, that's really cool. So it makes, it just kind of reinforces.
Yeah.
Actually, I get to use it again.
That's what you're paying me so much
That's
for.
right. That's right.
That's it.
That's right. And it's my MixPre 6 has a little slot, and it's mounted inside, so I don't even have to pull it out.
Next level.
Just plug it in and turn it on.
Killing it. Yeah, Marcus like solders his own cords and like goes extra hard on nerdery.
Yes.
As he likes.
I used to do studio installs. I worked for Claire Brothers.
Okay.
Before they were Claire Global.
Yeah.
And my job in between tours was to repair and build all the cables, like power cables, snakes, all the military grade like stuff, a lot of crimping and soldering and stuff. So I love to solder. Yeah. Patch bays.
I'm going to get you a shirt that says, I love to solder.
I love to solder.
I bet you no one's ever asked for that before.
Sell 2 of them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Short run. Well, Joe, thanks for coming on the show. This was super informative. I mean, Marcus is always singing the praises of the MixPre and Adam as well. And
I won't shut up.
I always
about
love
it.
the name because I'm like, Sound Devices. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's like that movie. I might be showing my age here, but the with Dudley Moore, and it was called Crazy People.
Yes.
And he was like in the advertising business, and he went crazy, and they put him in like the loony bin, and he came up with all these ad campaigns, and it was like Volvos, they're boxy but good, and like this is just like really. So Sound Devices always kind of like reminds me of that a little bit. Like, what would we call it? Sound Devices. All right, let's go with that.
Good branding right there.
Yeah. Does what it says.
Does what it says.
You know, and it leaves you wide open. You know, you can make any kind of sound device you want.
Yeah.
You're still within the scope of the name.
Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to get one because I got to say, like, you know, all the what is it called? The float, what? The 32-bit float?
32-bit float, yeah.
Why is it called that?
That's a
That
whole
sounds
other
like
podcast,
it reminds me of that
Molly.
movie with the crazy
Molly,
clown that lives
we
in
ain't
the
going
fucking
there.
gutter.
All right,
and
that's a whole other
we all
deal.
float down here. Okay. All right.
It's all
right.
digital data.
Marcus is going
how
there.
it. Yeah.
It
I'm not
slowly.
going to go
Just-
into it, but
It
yeah.
just floats. Yeah, it moves with your audio.
You
That's
don't have to worry about
Yeah.
it because it's a mix.
It's not fixed,
You just
it's
push the button
floating.
and it works. It just
And it
floats around.
floats. That's it. Yeah, don't put your MixPre in the
It
water.
doesn't
Those
float.
don't float.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The software floats.
Do you guys put that on the box too? You're like, please
Does
do
not
Don't put this
float.
in the water. Yeah, don't.
Does not actually
Does-
float.
Is not a flotation
Does not.
device. In the event of a
Got a
crash.
picture of Pennywise on the back, and it's like, this does not all float down here. do not do that. Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This has been great. You know, I think it's really cool when our listeners, you know, all 19 of them get to hear a little bit more about the, you know, programs that, you know, people are using and the equipment, because there's so much bad information on Facebook and these different groups, and everybody's pushing the same bad microphones and just giving, as my mother would say, piss poor advice, you know? And so, it's just really refreshing to hear you guys talk about this stuff in a way that's, you know, accessible, and it just, you know, makes things a little bit easier to understand, because it is very overwhelming. So, you know, if you've listened to this podcast and you're thinking about buying one, you should definitely hit up Adam. I'm sure Adam sells sound devices. Hit up Joe. You know, hit up Marcus if you want like some soldering tips,
Custom
on
cables.
Yeah.
your next project. But I mean, I feel like, you know, good equipment, right? Like, it reminds me of my favorite bong. It used to be called the Toke Master, but now they call it the Tobacco Master for legal reasons. And they have like limited production on them because over 200 separate steps go into like the sanding and gluing of these bongs. I know, it's ridiculous. And at the bottom of this like 4-page brochure about this like cylindrical piece of plastic, it says, if you take good care of your TM, it'll take good care of you. And I feel like Sound Devices, you know, I feel like you guys got something going there, you know? If you take care of your sound devices,
It'll take
they
care
will
of
take
you.
care of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Nailed it. That's exactly
Absolutely.
it.
I know. If you guys want any marketing, you
No,
know,
yeah.
input, I'm here.
Well, yeah, I'll call you. That's perfect.
Corporate love stuff like that,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
What do they do around here?
Yes.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put all the links to like find you on social and your groups and everything in the show notes for our listeners. And we really appreciate you, spending some time and hanging out with us. And we look forward to seeing you maybe at the next podcast convention. You never know.
Yeah, of course. Can't wait.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks,
whenever
Joe.
that may be. Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, guy.